All right, we're live for episode 21 of Practical Chrome. Welcome, everybody, to Practical Chrome. This episode is called, If You Can, Snag It. I love my catchy titles. On this episode of Practical Chrome 21, we're going to interview a few members of the team from TechSmith who created Snagit for Chrome. We will discuss with Kelly Rush and Randy Schott the journey from an awesome Windows app to a cannot live without cross-platform screencasting powerhouse. That's a nice delivery. That was good. Also in the news, we do have some Bing and Chrome OS, also some info on the big Google and Intel event that happened today. So those are some awesome things that are happening. Of course, Practical Chrome is the podcast dedicated to everyday Chrome users, whether you're using Chrome OS on a Chromebook, or you're using the Chrome browser on your Mac, your Android, your iOS device, whatever you're using it for. This is where you're going to come to find out all of the news, reviews, and all the good tips regarding Chrome. So definitely stick with us. Of course, I'd like to welcome my co-hosts, James Welbes and Craig Tumblison. James, how are you doing this evening, sir?
I'm doing good, John. How are you?
I'm excellent. And you're wearing your hat again, your Google hat?
Of course.
Of course, I'm jealous, right? Craig, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great, John.
Excellent. And of course, now I want to introduce, this episode, we're actually going to go right into our main, right? Normally we do the news, then we do the main, then we do plus ones, things like that. But I wanted to give the guys from TechSmith the opportunity to be on a little bit earlier and not have to stay up late with us, because we have gone into the 11 o'clock, one time 12 o'clock hour, so we don't want to do that. But again, welcome Kelly Rush, Randy Scott. Evening, gentlemen. I always do this. I never kind of intro. Got to give Kelly the first opportunity because I don't want you guys to run into each other. Kelly, how you doing this evening?
Great. How you guys doing?
Got it. And Randy?
I'm good, thanks.
Awesome. So Snagit, right? I've actually used the Windows app because my company has a corporate license or whatever, to where that if you really want to be able to take really great screen captures when you're doing tutorials or things like that, then this is the app that my company reaches for when it wants it. And so recently I saw that you guys had just taken screencasting out of beta. You had the great extension there that allowed you to take the screen capture tools, which I think was a little bit in the late of last year, right, that you guys came out with the extension. So there was a lot of news about that. And so I really wanted to get you guys on. When I saw that you guys were coming out of beta, I gave the app a really good kind of once over, made myself a couple of quick little videos, things like that, just trying to test it out. And I thought it was really impressive that it's the extension was great to begin with, which is just you can take a clipping from a web page or whatever, and then annotate it as you need to, and then you can slip that into a document. But with the screencasting, you guys went to the next level, and it's a 100% Chrome app. I mean, you've got the great library in there, things like that. So I wanted to have you guys on. And again, thanks for coming on, guys. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having us.
So Kelly, I'll start off with you. If you wouldn't mind, introduce yourself and kind of, if you would tell me kind of the quick version of why Chrome when it came to Snagit and with the screencasting.
A quick version of why Chrome. Okay. So first, to introduce myself. Like you said, John, I'm Kelly Rush. I'm the product owner of Snagit for Google Chrome. And basically that means it's up to me to sort of coordinate what features are going in and make sure they get all in time, stuff like that. So why Chrome is actually a great question. It's actually part of a broader TechSmith goal, which is we want to try to be everywhere and on every device. We want to make our users productive no matter what environment they're in. And so we obviously have a pretty good presence on mobile devices. We have Coach's Eye and Fuse. But then we started looking at this sort of emerging Google environment, the Chrome platform, and we didn't have anything there. And so we have a great education team at TechSmith who probably around July of last year said, you guys really need to be looking at Chromebooks. These are sort of becoming a thing, especially in education. So we said, Chromebooks, what are that? We're all kind of remembering the CR48, the very early thoughts of what the Chrome platform was. But so we started looking at it, and we of course said, okay, this is definitely a thing, especially in education. And so to wrap that back around, to try to fulfill that goal of being where all our users are on any device, any platform, Chrome just made a ton of sense for us to start looking at.
Awesome. Awesome. And Randy, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and kind of give me a quick intro as to where you were developing before, because you're the lead developer on the screencasting tool.
Sure. We don't really have a lead developer, but I'm probably the most senior one on the team, I guess. So yeah, I'm a senior software engineer at TechSmith. I've been there for about 7 years. And before I got on the Snagit team, spent most of my time on the Camtasia Studio, which is our Windows screen recording tool. It's been around for, I think, 12 years at this point. So I did a couple years on that, and then I moved over to some of our cloud products and got some web experience and started to get a feel for what that was like. And then the opportunity came up to work on a Chrome application, and I just kind of jumped on it and said this might be fun. And it turned out that having some experience in video multimedia type stuff came in handy because we were going to try and do screencasting. So it's been a fun ride.
Well, again, guys, thanks for coming on. I want to give Craig and James the opportunity to ask a couple questions. Craig, did you had a few questions lined up? Did you have one or two?
Yeah, I can launch right into them if you'd like.
Yeah, let's go. Hit Kelly and Randy hard.
Okay, the first one, I'm just really curious about this. I gave the app a once-over, and in the settings menu, I found a checkbox that says that you can enable experimental features, but it doesn't actually list what those are. So I'm curious if there's a listing on your website, or if you guys might be able to tell us what directions you're possibly interested in taking the app in the future. Anything on that subject would be great.
Stay tuned. So, so the mystery behind that is when we were starting along the path of screencasting, when M33 was out, M34 was on the horizon for Chrome, which is what was going to enable us to actually do the screen recording. We wanted to let people sort of start to get a taste of it, that were interested in screencasting, but we didn't want to sort of force that on all the users, especially while it wasn't quite ready for prime time. So we put the experimental features option in there to let people try it out, and we're pretty happy with the feedback that we got from that. So right now we're planning on keeping that around, and though we're not exposing anything in it right now, like I said, stay tuned.
Perfect. That sounds excellent. To that same end, then, what kind of to the feedback point for any developers that might be listening, how would you gauge feedback from the Chrome community versus feedback from the Windows community for your other Windows products? Is the Chrome community at this point more actively engaged because it's mostly early adopters, or is it something where you're looking at it and saying, well, it's this small user base and we're getting kind of a low engagement from the feedback? I'm just curious in general as to if someone was to start to develop a Chrome app, whether that level of engagement would be there to give feedback early on, or if that's something the Chrome platform's lacking as a whole.
So I'll give my point of view, and then I'll let Randy talk about it if he has anything to add. It'd be hard for me to say sort of what the exact numbers are for our Windows app versus the Chrome app, because I don't work as much on the Windows side. I will say from the Chrome side, going into it, we weren't expecting a lot of engagement because we didn't know the community very well. We thought it was fairly limited. I'm happy to say that was completely wrong. We've had huge engagements from the Chrome community. I think the biggest thing is you have to know where to look for it. So sort of the traditional places that you would go, it might sort of seem that it's not an active community, but the big turning point for me was Google+. So as soon as I started getting in there, going to all the Chromebook communities, the Google Apps for Education communities, and adding people there, it was just an absolute treasure trove of good information and great people who are just absolutely willing to give their feedback. So it's more about finding where the users are and then just engaging them there.
Yeah, we also had, when we initially started working on screencasting, we had a beta group that we interacted with through, I think it was a Google Plus community and or a Google group, and they were super helpful in just figuring out everything that we wanted to do, and I think a lot of them have continued to give us feedback throughout that. But Kelly's right, it is kind of hard to gauge because our desktop products don't really have any feedback through any Google mechanism. We actually use a third-party product that hosts a big feedback website for all of our products, and we have an entry for Snagit for Chrome on there, and it barely gets used because everybody's delivering feedback through the web store or through Google Plus or everywhere else that would make more sense for a Google product.
Yep.
Thanks. That's fantastic information for any would-be app developers listening. It's definitely a good sign to know that the information's out there, even if it's not necessarily visible from the surface. So it's really good to know that. Thank you both for that. James, did you have any questions?
Yeah, I did have a question. I've had a chance to use the app and the extension that comes with it, and they so far they work very well. Very smooth experience. I do kind of have a question if there's other people listening that maybe haven't used Snagit yet. If someone was to ask you on Windows, there's the snipping tool, and on Chrome OS, there's the ability to take screenshots of the whole screen or small screenshots of specific areas. Could you maybe kind of sell yourselves a little bit and tell someone who's never used Snagit why should they bother adding Snagit as opposed to using these tools that already exist?
Sure. So those are sort of great little tools if you just want to do a one-off screenshot and have it sort of statically live in your computer. What we do with all the Snagits, but especially with Snagit for Google Chrome, is we're trying to go past that sort of static image living on your computer and really get into what the Google ecosystem does best, which is sort of this tight sharing and collaboration mechanism. So you see that with when you take captures with Snagit for Google Chrome, it goes into your library and you can share it out into Google Drive with other people. And then obviously the screencasting component goes way beyond what you can get with the Windows snipping tool or the native Google Chrome tool. And still, we're going to try to keep pushing that forward as far as finding good ways to integrate it with the Google ecosystem. So I think that's probably the biggest difference for it.
All right.
Cool.
Yeah. Awesome. Now, I had a quick question for Randy. Now, when it comes to development, right? So you have the Chrome app is different. It's going to be available to cross-platform. It's going to be launching through Chrome instead of through a Windows library and things like that, where you have to kind of work towards your OS in a lot of senses, or you're working towards one language. But here you'd be able to work across this one brand new platform. And you mentioned wanting to work within the new Chrome kind of app ecosystem a little bit. What would you say is like the thing that really drew you in? And then also the thing that kind of surprises you about it and makes you want to stay.
That's a good question. So anybody that has done any amount of web development knows that one of the most painful parts is going to be anything that you want to do will work in 60 to 70% of the browsers you want to support, and one of them will always fail. So you spend, I don't know, 50% or more of your time trying to patch whichever browsers don't work. And historically, for a lot of developers, it's been I spend all of my time developing in Chrome, and then once I get it working, I might go fix it in Firefox or IE or Safari or Opera or whatever. So, one of the nice things is you just develop for Chrome. It's like writing any sort of web application. It's all HTML, JavaScript, and CSS, just like you would do for a website, except it just has to work in Chrome. They give you lots of APIs on top of that to do, things with audio devices, capturing the screen. Obviously we're using that. All sorts of things for storing things and syncing across machines and all that. But you don't have to worry about other browsers, and you also, any of the features like upcoming web standards that Chrome decides to implement, they tend to be ahead on a lot of those things, so you get to take advantage of those as soon as Chrome ships it and says it's more or less stable. So we've gotten to take advantage of a couple of newer web standards that I would never dare use on a production website, because it'd just be a nightmare to support in like IE8 or something, and not having to care about that has been awesome. On the flip side, it is, as much as it might not seem like developing for a traditional operating system like Windows or OS X or anything like that, it is like an operating system, except it's like if Windows were to ship an update every 6 weeks, and there's a chance every 6 weeks that they might ship a bug that you have to react to very quickly. And that did actually happen to us when M34 shipped. We happened to not catch, when it was in beta, that there was an issue that just completely killed screen recording in the water, because we had been testing it as a beta feature for a while, and so that went out the door, and that day everybody was just flooding us with, hey, nothing works anymore, what's going on? And so we had to spend the day patching those fires and shipping that out. And Chrome does have bugs just like Windows would, and anything like that. We're waiting on a couple right now to be fixed. So you have to work around those too, but in general, it's been a positive experience. it just, yeah, all of the neat web stuff you get to do, and just not have to care. As long as it runs in Chrome, you're all set. That's all it needs to do. And Chrome gives you the the assumption that if you can make it run in Chrome on one platform, it's their job to make it run on all the other platforms. So Snagit for Chrome was accidentally our first Linux product, which was cool. We've got screen recording on Linux now just because Chrome supports Linux and we're a Chrome app. And I thought that was pretty neat.
That's actually very neat. I agree with you. That is really cool. Kelly, in regard to education, right? So you mentioned that your education folks were like, "Hey, you guys got to get on this," and we've talked about now the fact that Chrome. I'm actually going to show my screen so you guys can see where it is in the web store. But the fact that this application works in Chrome, like I have a Windows machine that I have the Chrome on, and I've used the Snagit tool, both the extension and the recorder. But the Chromebook itself is really kind of like is a really powerful operating system, right? Like Randy just said, you're actually also coding for, Linux basically. But the fact that so many schools now are adopting this. I mean, we're gonna talk about in a minute the fact that Google is saying that 10,000 schools now have these Chromebooks in them, and I've seen on your guys' website where you guys talk about the education and the fact that the teachers are really embracing this and jumping on it and being like, man, this is really where I want to go. This is really how I want to show the students something. How big has that been? It seems like it's like huge. Like I think that you guys have really and I say something like use the words like tap to market, like some type of marketing guru. But it's basically true. You literally now have like hundreds, if not thousands, of people being like, I'm going to use that tool. That's exactly what I needed. Thank you so much. What has been like the reception of that? And have you guys really pushed towards that?
Yeah, absolutely. That was sort of a surprise for us. So I can sort of anecdotally relate. I was at McCall, which is sort of a Michigan computer education type of conference, and I think it was a few days after we came out in beta, we had multiple people come up to the booth and say, I've been using the screencasting feature in Snagit for Chrome now, and like for them to already understand that was out there and then come up to us and talk to us shows like how quickly it's being embraced. So yeah, the numbers that you hear from Google, like you said, I think it was 5,000 schools had it. Maybe it was last quarter, and now it's 10,000 right now. Seems like it's growing at an absolutely huge pace, and I would say I'm not shocked by those numbers at all. It's been just growing like crazy in education.
Nice. So you've got the screencasting, you've got the library functionality, and you're working on future products. Where's the is the end goal just to be able to offer these products, or are you guys going to start to move some of the other products into Chrome? Are you kind of what's the path, and are you seeing enough adoption that you're really going to push for it? I know that's kind of a broad question, but I'm kind of wondering, and then Kelly, after you answer it, Randy, I want to know from you, are you looking forward to possibly developing for Chrome again? So Kelly, first question to you is this definitely going to be like a major push for Snagit, like definitely because you guys have seen such a large hit in education? And then Randy, from a developer perspective, are you looking forward to continuing to develop? Do you find it like easy? My question.
Sure. So let me get my crystal ball and kind of look at the future here.
That's right.
Yeah, I think, like I said, we hadn't really looked at the sort of Google ecosystem back in, I think, August timeframe is when we first started looking at this. So we just weren't sure how big the market was for it. At the moment, I think we have something like 150,000 users added in the first 5 or 6 months that we've been out. So definitely we're very happy to see that type of growth. As far as does that mean we're going to like literally bring our other desktop products over to it? That's tough to say right now. I'll go back to what I said before. We basically want to make people productive wherever they are, in whatever context that sort of makes sense for the platform. So whether or not that means we bring other products there or we sort of keep evolving Snagit for Google Chrome, it's tough to say, but it sort of comes down to that end goal of just making sure that we're keeping people productive and sort of doing what they want on whatever platform they're on.
So that's my turn, isn't it? So in terms of developing future things for Chrome, when we actually started, our initial goal, our mandate was screencasting on a Chromebook. That was the goal, and that was in August of last year. And we found out that that wasn't really, we could sort of do it, but it just didn't work that great. So so we said let's table that for a little bit and wait for Chrome to be in the right spot to do it. And so we did the extension instead and the static capture. And right now there's just a huge pile of stuff that we said, hey, wouldn't it be great if we could do this? Wouldn't it be great if we could do that? Just endless ideas for things we'd even just want to do in Snagit for Chrome. So I doubt there will be any shortage of work and fun things to do. I've certainly got lots of stuff I'd like to do to Snagit, at least. I can't imagine the challenge of bringing something like Camtasia to Chrome. So if and when we do that, that would be fun, I guess. I'd gladly work on that sort of thing. It'd probably be a nightmare for a couple of months, but it's been a fun experience. I definitely probably wouldn't turn down an opportunity to do more Chrome work. It's kind of a neat platform.
Nice. I like that. It's because, and I understand the whole be a nightmare at first. They're always a nightmare at first, right?
Oh yeah, no, I mean,
the requirements land.
I've never done a Chrome app to let's figure out how to do something that nobody has done on Chrome and is probably impossible. That was a couple of months of just trying everything we could possibly do, and nope, that didn't work. This prototype sucks, and eventually landing on something that we thought was good. And when we shipped 1.0, I said, that's the crappiest app I've ever seen. Why did we push that out the door? And then now I look at it and go, that's way better than what we shipped in November. So it's, you start small and you just tack things on, and eventually it's, the best Chrome app you've ever seen.
There you go. All right. Now, Craig, did you have any other questions that you wanted to ask Kelly or Randy?
Sure. On that same topic, Randy, would you mind telling us how engaged the developer community is? Are there resources available? I know Google holds hackathons every now and then where they invite upcoming app developers in the door and say, hey, sit down with us and spend a couple hours showing us what you want from our platform. So just in general, we discussed how engaged the users are, but from the development side, are those resources actively available?
Sure. So Chrome's got lots of documentation. Sorry, Google has lots of documentation on developing Chrome apps and extensions, and that's actually changed faces twice since we started. It's much better now than it was last fall. So that's been a lot better. We've actually emailed them occasionally and said, hey, these docs list something that's not right, and they just okay, and they fix it, and it's published that day with a fix. So that was cool. A couple of us went out to the Chrome Dev Summit earlier this year. Or was it last fall? Last fall, yeah. And got a chance to talk with some of the Chrome people, some of the Blink developers, and all that. And they're all super nice people. Then they hold every Google event you go to, they'll hold a session of sit down with a developer advocate and tell us what you want to see. That's what they're most interested in. And some of the stuff that I saw at the Dev Summit that people had brought up and talked about is now stuff that's shipping in Chrome. At least in the development build. So. They're very active. They're very engaged. There's Google groups for Chrome extensions, Chrome apps, for native client development, which is the writing native code that ships with Chrome extensions and apps. There's tons and tons of developers out there to help you, and tons of resources on how to get this stuff done.
Cool. That's great to hear. That's something that, especially between the three of us on this show, we're not developers. So we wouldn't even know what counts as a resource and what doesn't. So it's just good to get that insight. Thanks for that.
No problem.
James, do you have any questions, sir?
Yeah, I was just kind of curious about given what we talked about earlier with the way the Chrome OS has been growing so quickly, particularly in the education market. I was wondering if there's anything that you are allowed to talk about regarding any future features that might be kind of education specific that might attract students, teachers, principals, and that kind of stuff to help Snagit itself grow with Chrome OS in the education market.
Right. So, so specific features. I don't think I can think of anything off the top of my head that we're thinking of right immediately. Most of that is going to be dictated sort of by where Google takes the ecosystem. So a great example is probably something you might talk about a little later in the show is the Google Classroom that was announced today. So as things like that come out, we're always trying to look at how they're growing their ecosystem and maturing it. And as things make sense, we're absolutely going to look at trying to integrate into them.
Yeah, there's to speak a little more on that. There's definitely some things that are nearly possible if you're like a Google Apps for Education school that has a domain that's managed by an administrator. So you might be aware already that administrators can push out extensions to everybody. And there's, I think, hopefully ways coming down the pipe where administrators can push out settings for applications, and that's something that we're definitely going to keep an eye on. Anything we can do to help, help a domain admin do something and make it just happen on end users' machines. Obviously that's going to be less of a barrier for people to, to push out, 500 installations of our app just because it's that easy to configure. And there's lots of cool possibilities for things you can do once you start integrating with that, but it definitely needs a little more work on Google's side for it to be useful to us directly, as opposed to some of the other apps out there that are focused directly on education. They might be like hosted apps where they're doing all the work on their end, and that's maybe not so feasible for us right now, just in terms of where we're at with the product and what the current goals are. But there's definitely possibility for some cool stuff that we could do.
Cool.
Nice. Well, guys, I know that I promised you I'd only give you half an hour, or I'd only keep you for half an hour. So I do want to let you go, but again, Kelly, Randy, I do appreciate you guys coming out. I appreciate TechSmith also making a great app, and you guys working on that. Kelly, if you wouldn't mind, just tell everyone, where they can, how the best way to find, of course, the Chrome Web Store. But if there's any other things that you kind of want to give a shout out towards in regard to TechSmith, Snagit, Chrome, let us know. What do we got?
Absolutely. So the Chrome Web Store is obviously a good place to download it. Visit our website too. Just go to techsmith.com and you can find the specific page for Snagit from there. If I was going to give a shout out for anything else, I'd say check out on Google Plus the TechSmith and Education Google Plus community. I think we have just a little under 800 members there now, and we just throw out a lot of information about what cool things we're seeing in the education world. We like hearing how people are using Snagit for Chrome, but also the other TechSmith suite of products. So yeah, check that out on Google Plus. It's the TechSmith Education Google Plus community.
Awesome. Well, again, thanks, guys. I'll go ahead and let you go. You guys can head out. You guys can actually go to bed, unlike some of us. And again, I really appreciate you guys coming on.
Absolutely. Thanks for taking the time to have us here.
Yeah, thanks for having us on.
Yep.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye, Kelly.
See ya.
All right, that was great. I really appreciate them coming on. Again, everybody, if you haven't tried out the TechSmith Snagit app, you definitely got to check it out. I'm going to bring it up kind of up on the screen again here. This is it in the web store. If you're looking for a tool to capture the basically what you're doing on the screen with your mouse and everything, as well as your audio when you're talking, you can definitely use this application. It works really well. It creates a little library for you so you can see it. And then also in the web store is also the extension where, and James talked about this, where you can kind of grab images on the screen. You can take either part of the screen or all of the screen. That's just really cool. So again, really appreciate them coming on. That was awesome. That was really, really, really nice of them to come out there. So it's something that I would say I definitely endorse as a great app. So guys, news, right? Crazy. It's time to get into the news section. Today, in the news, we had the big Google Intel event. Now, what I'm going to do is, Craig, I know that you didn't get a chance to watch, right? Not live, right? You had me and James and a bunch of the other Chromies out there, pinging you with all the stuff that was going on at once. So I'm not gonna hit you with this question, but James, what were your thoughts on the presentation itself, really quickly, and don't be too honest.
All right. I'm not sure what that means, but I'll try to just be mostly honest. As far as the presentation goes, I thought it was you know, they did as well as they could given the material that they had to present. I mean, they weren't presenting the iPhone for the very first time, you know, so it wasn't, you know, Disney World fireworks and whatnot, but for what they were presenting today, I think they did a good job. I think Intel did a good job hosting the event. It was a little weird the way they compared the Intel to the non-Intel, aka ARM processors. That portion of it made me scratch my head a little bit. It seemed almost a little, I don't know, uncouth. But otherwise, I thought they did a good job.
All right. Now, Craig, from all of the ping 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 ping, all the bloop 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 bloop, like coming from your hangout, what did you what was your overall impression just from what people were kind of hollering about it?
I found it severely underwhelming, but I didn't get to watch it live. So I was following a live blog from CNET and a hangout with all of you guys, basically live tweeting it. So that was nice. But I honestly, when I heard that they were talking about Intel versus non-Intel, I assumed maybe they were talking about a future AMD release, but apparently that's not what was going on. They were just making fun of ARM, which, okay, that's fine. It's a little bit weird for Google to be endorsing that, but Intel is their biggest partner at the moment. They do make a lot more devices than ARM provides chips for. And ARM for Chrome right now is mostly a Samsung venture. So they're not going to make the rest of their OEMs mad by saying that, just Samsung. And Google has a love-hate relationship with Samsung as it is, so that'll probably be okay. But for me, the biggest announcement that came during this event wasn't the devices. We already kind of knew about that. It's that Google Play Movies will be available for offline caching on Chromebooks soon. That's the big news for me, because that's a feature I have needed for a very long time. And I am finally thrilled. And I'm hoping that Google Play Music will be included in that. I'm hoping that'll be launched at the same time. No guarantee, they didn't mention that, but it only makes sense. And that would be killer. So that's where I stand right now.
I'm with you. What I'm going to do is real quick. So it was held today. It was about 1 o'clock Eastern time. And basically it was an Intel, they call it the Google Intel event, but it was really an Intel event, and that kind of what James mentioned there about the fact that they did do a kind of a horsepower test, right? They did a WebGL game, and they did one on ARM and then one on their Intel chipset, and then they did a hangout with the same thing. And there's more horsepower in the Intel chip, so that's just kind of the way it is. So you can't really. I thought it was a kind of a apples to oranges kind of comparison, and I kind of want to be like, come on, man, it's like that was kind of cheap. But let me kind of just real quick. So they started it up at 1 o'clock. The gentleman from Intel, of course, I didn't write down names. I'm terrible. He came out and just really kind of just talked about the fact that Intel has been partnering with Google and trying to release these boards that come out that are very that are kind of perfect for Chrome. And the summary came out like this. I'm just going to read this real quick. It's on the screen behind me. This is Abraham Williams. He posted this really great screen grab. And basically, the summary was that the new Intel Core i3 Chromebooks coming from Acer and Dell are coming. First Chromebooks based on the Bay Trail coming this summer, which of course have the battery life and fanless designs. 20 plus designs by second half 14. Is that what that means? Based on Haswell and Bay Trail, and they only to support 64-bit. Chromebooks are deployed in nearly 10,000 schools. Coming soon, watch movies and TV shows like Craig said. And then finally, and this was I thought this was kind of cool, but the Intel Chrome devices among the first that are conflict-free. And basically what that talks about is the fact that in countries where we need to get some of the alloys that are required to make a board and or a chip, they're treated like slaves. They're hurt. It's a terrible situation because the mines are just holes in the ground and people are just forced down there to go mine. So what they try and do is and then pays for terrible things like warlords and stuff like that no one ever wants to sponsor. No matter how much anybody wants a device, you want to be able to say that you didn't get it from that type of environment. So what Intel's done is that they've they've re-engineered their, from what I could tell what they were saying, they've re-engineered their supply chain to make sure and guarantee that it's conflict free, that the materials that are coming in. So that was kind of an interesting thing. My takeaway was, that there was a couple of really great questions towards the end. I'm going to try and see if I can find a link and put it in the show notes for the whole video. But towards the end there, they allowed people to ask some questions from the press that was at the event, and they were all the questions that we talk about, right? When are larger screens coming? When are faster processors coming? Now they talked about the i3. When are mid-grade machines coming in that regard, right? When are they coming? And then finally where's touch, right? So I think Kevin Toffel was kind of, he was on a flight, and so he kind of was like, hey, if anything, you guys got to let me know because I'm going to be up there, so you guys got to watch it for me. Let me know if they have any tablets out there. They deflected because I think that they've found their market. These are selling really well, and that people are really happy with them. And this $200 market, this $300 market is perfect. They're selling a ton of them to the different markets, education, some in business, and of course the consumer markets just exploded. So my takeaway from this event was this was kind of just Intel being like, hey, look, the i3 is coming out, the Bay Trail's coming out, more Chromebooks are coming. Right? That was kind of this event. So that's kind of my takeaway. You guys have anything to add, James? Any other thoughts on that, on the awesome event that we had there?
Yeah, I loved the first question from the Q&A at the end, which was, I forget exactly what the question was, but to paraphrase it, it was like, could you, as the OEMs, tell us why all your devices are pretty much exactly the same, and what are you ever going to do to differentiate yourself from each other? So I thought that was a fun question. I think Lenovo led the discussion on that one and basically pointed out their education model and how different it was from all the other ones. But I'm glad the question was asked, and I hope that some of them are thinking about ways that they can differentiate themselves from the rest. Seeing as how right now the most different Chromebook is the Samsung, and they weren't present at this event. So I think that was kind of cool. I was surprised by their comparison between Intel and ARM, but I was okay with it. I mean, I was surprised that they did it, and I thought it was kind of weird, but I thought it was cool. I mean, I felt like it was comparing apples to apples because it was comparing a Chromebook to something else, calling itself a Chromebook, and just saying, hey, this one's better. Watch it be better. And the unfair aspect of that is they didn't really go over the other benefits of some of the ARM devices, like the HP 11 having probably the best Chromebook screen available. But this was an Intel event, so we were talking about mainly processors. So I thought that was kind of cool. Maybe not cool, but just kind of interesting that they actually went there and did a side-by-side comparison. So yeah, it was a little underwhelming, like Craig said. It basically was just they just bombarded us with model numbers, basically. They said, coming in summer is this from Lenovo, coming in a few months is this from this company, and at the end of the year is this from this company. And it was really hard to keep up with my tweets because they were just basically just dropping models on us. So they didn't really go into any features. I don't know what's coming feature-wise. I just know that a lot of new Chromebooks are coming by the end of this year.
Yeah, but they all do have that. What they also kind of not revealed, but is they had a design model, right? A design reference model is, I believe, what they called it. So Intel has a really nice mock-up that they can send to, Samsung. Well, not Samsung. They can send to Asus and that runs it. Asus? Is it Asus or Asus? I can't remember. I didn't watch that video. But anyway, so there's a way to say it. But they had this really great. It looked like the Asus, to be honest, and it was just like a little design concept model, so that we could send it out. It had all the ports on it, or stuff like that, so that way a company could know how to put this together. So that was kind of interesting. Craig, did you have any other thoughts behind the wonderful confab?
Well, I think the bottom line that James was just digging around was that what probably happened was Intel was allowed to make fun of ARM, and Samsung was allowed to call their new device the Chromebook 2. that's probably the agreement that was made. And honestly, that's probably a fair trade-off, because Google is going to be advertising it as the Chromebook 2. There's going to be marketing money there. They put marketing money behind the original Samsung, they're going to do it again. So holding an Intel-only event, it's fair game in my opinion. As for the models being all the same, that's a real problem. I am kind of excited to see a few of them getting i3 options. I think that's kind of going to have to be the strategy moving forward. People are not going to buy a $1,200 Chromebook. It didn't happen when they released the Pixel. Few people, but not mass adoption. But if you take the basic models we have now, and you offer upgradable options, that's where your savvy users are going to go. They're going to want to hit that $400 to $600 price range, and if the OEMs can offer the same design, the same R&D cost, with just an upgraded component or two, and be able to offer a higher range Chromebook without having to invest more money in it, I think that might be a pretty sound strategy. I would be okay with paying an additional $100 for an i3 model versus just a basic Haswell. And I think a lot of the people that are searching for that mid-end model, that's what they're after. They're looking for the power, they're looking for that additional 2 gigabytes of RAM, and they're looking for a price point that isn't $1,200. So I'm okay with that.
All right. Look, I agree with you. I agree with you. And you know, when it comes to and James, you had mentioned this before, it was the Lenovo's and their ruggedness, and the fact that they were talking about the fact that they're going after that education market, and that yoga model. I'm sorry, like I don't know what. Maybe it's just I'm going after the features, because that rotating screen, like the touch stuff. It's sexy to me. I just think it plus I have a Lenovo for work, so I'm like, I really want to, and it was only they're going to list it at $429. So that's a really great, nice price point for that model, for a fully convertible laptop, right? I just thought that was a good. I like that one. That's what I want. Out of all of them, I told you I like Asus. I love Asus, the company, but they are a little cookie cutter with their. Now you get an i3 in there. Yeah. And I'm hoping to get my hands on a Pixel. I'm hoping. I'm trying to do like this trade thing. This guy at work who's actually caught the show, he's got a Pixel. I'm like, woo! I haven't approached him yet. So if you're watching right now, I want it. I want to borrow it so I can try it out. I'll give you my C27. I know it's not. My C720, it's not as powerful. Not at all. But I'd love to trade up. So hopefully I'll get my hands on one. So. All right, we'll wrap that up. That was an interesting. I enjoyed watching it. That's number one. I thought it was good. I think that was kind of my number one takeaway. It was like, that was cool. So let's head into some other news, other awesome Chrome news. So you can see our own Chrome story. Didn't sign had an article, and it's an official Bing-powered Chrome new tab page is getting ready. And that was the truth. They literally are hard coding in, so to speak. The ability for default search providers to create a new tab page, so that way it gives the opportunity for someone like Bing, or someone like Yahoo, or someone like who are the other ones in there? It's very interesting how they did it. But Craig, I'm gonna kind of give it to you for a second, because I know that you kind of looked at the code and you corrected me a few times. That's how you roll. And about this feature, and I'm going to put it up on the screen a little bit. I'm actually going to go to the Bing page, but you can see on the screen there, that's actually, kind of your default Bing new tab if you want it to be. So Craig, what was your takeaway from all this?
Well, it's not surprising, but it's a little bit interesting how they're doing it. Chrome already ships with several different options for default search engine provider. That's been going on for years. So Bing is an option, Yahoo's an option, Baidu, Ask, and there's a couple of country-specific ones. There's one specifically for the Netherlands, a couple for China besides Baidu. Yandex, I think, is the Russian one. Mail.ru. There's a couple other default ones. So the code is very, very simple for these. It's just the entry name, and I've got it listed on Google+, and we can link to that too. But it's a really simple blob of text that defines each of these separate providers. So what Google's done is when they created the new tab page, to news, new tab page. Their naming conventions are horrible. But when they did it, they provided the option for these default search providers to signify a default new tab page unique to their service. And to implement it, it's adding a URL to the manifesto. It's that simple. It's literally a line of code. One line of text. That's all it takes to implement this. And once it's pushed out, it's live. So it goes through the channel system because it is a commit, so it's not an update that will be pushed in small increments. But once it's out there, it's live, and people can start using it immediately. There are some trade-offs. You lose your recently visited sites, but there's always the option that if you're signed into Bing, maybe they can offer that to you. Maybe your Bing bookmarks can be on that page. There's all kinds of possibilities here. I'm actually really excited for this. I'm a Google guy, but I know people that use Bing. A couple. Well, one.
I was going to say, you liar. You are a liar.
I actually have a very close friend that owns a Windows phone, and she uses Internet Explorer on her Windows 8.1 laptop. So they exist. They're not Bigfoot. They do exist. But I am truly excited, and I would be really interested to see what a search provider like Baidu or Yahoo would be able to do with this, not just Bing. But just the creativity that this offers. And before anybody asks, I do not know what it takes to become a default search provider.
I was going to say, I already asked you that question because I was wondering where DuckDuckGo was. Because I think DuckDuckGo is a unique search provider that's available out there. So.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's a partnership where Microsoft offers Google as a default search engine and Internet Explorer, and in exchange they just offer it there. I don't know how that plays out. There's probably politics involved, I'm sure. But
I can't think that. I think that Google would try and offer it to anybody who has. I mean, as long as you're maybe like it's per hit or something. So like DuckDuckGo better have 1 million hits a month, and then that quantifies them as a popular default search provider that they should put in there. I would hope that there's no back scratching.
I would assume that there's probably an internal policy that dictates what qualifies and what doesn't. But I searched. I couldn't find anything public. I may have missed it. I'm not an expert, but if anyone happens to find it, let me know because I am really interested in this.
Yeah,
it's very interesting to me. It's really neat. So I'm excited.
I got you, James. What about you, sir? What do you think about Bing or Yahoo or any other default new tab page?
I have so little to say compared to Craig. I have to admit I'm not nearly as excited about it. It's cool. Yeah, it's good to see companies going the route of openness rather than the route of, walled gardenness. I don't know how many people are going to use Chrome but then want to use a different search engine. Like Craig said, they do exist, probably. He seems rather trustworthy, so he's probably right. But if it took any more effort than that one little line of code, I don't think they would do it because why? I mean, if you're downloading Chrome, chances are you're going to use Google. Chances are you're just going to search right from the Omnibox anyways. So I think that it'll be a very, very, very small number of people using this feature, however cool the feature actually is. So it's fun to see it, but I'm not particularly excited about it. I will continue to use Google for my search. Maybe DuckDuckGo if they add that just for funsies, but.
I'm with it. Now, okay, so here's my Jerry Springer final thoughts, right? And that is, like the Omnibar can, I believe, defaults to use Bing or Yahoo. So you can get away from that. I think the point of that is Chrome OS is built by Google, but with an open source backend, and Google has provided the blobs or binary packages or plugins, however you want to call it. I don't know the exact technical term, but that give you things like PDF viewer, Flash, things like that. So these things are the things that Google kind of provides themselves, but everything else is really an open source OS. And unlike Windows back in the day, where they started pumping in, well, here's your IE, welcome to the web, right? well, they were seen as a monopoly, and in the EU they got hit for it, right? So I think this is Google making sure that the Chromium part of Chrome does still shine through, where you're able to get the search provider that you want to use. You could make this, it is Chrome OS, but Chrome is your browser, where you can still be a primary Microsoft product user at this point. You can still be Bing related. You can sign into your Bing account, stay static in your Bing, and stay logged in. So that way, all you have to do is click the links on your Bing new tab page, get right into Outlook.com, right into Word online, right? So you can still be a Microsoft user, but you are purchasing a Chrome device. And I think that's where Google's going with this, or at least that's where the Chromium team is kind of going with this. And I think Google's allowing it, or Google's saying, yeah, of course, we want to do this, because A, we don't want to get hit with a monopoly deal where it's basically we're providing something to schools and consumers that is not open. I think that's kind of my final take on it. I think that it is a very good thing. And I said something about it being sad that it was Bing, but I also meant that it was them being open and that they're allowing this, and I think it is a really good thing. And I hope DuckDuckGo is able to get in there. I'll leave that there. So that was that. So next up was the really quickly was we'll leave this one next. So the previewing a new classroom was the blog post that came out from the official enterprise blog from Google, and basically, and I'm going to kind of bring this up on the screen here in a second, is that Google is now offering a new product called Classroom through the Google Apps for Education. And basically, I think they're still in beta at this point, but basically it allows you to actually have a classroom, be able to kind of structure everything, give the kids assignments, get them back. It's a really great product that a lot of people have been going through some third-party vendors trying to get this kind of functionality, and what Google's done is they've actually created this application, which it looks great. I mean, all they really have right now is a video. They didn't have like a step-by-step, which is kind of something I wanted, but they didn't have it that I could see that was released today. But as you can see there, that's basically what it is. And Craig, I know that you've looked into it a little bit as well. Did you get a chance to really kind of dive in a little bit, or did you just kind of peek at it yourself?
Well, I read the blog post and watched the promo video, and unfortunately, that's all any of us can do right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. I mean, it's been in private testing for a few months. Google is currently seeking schools that are interested to get involved. So if you represent a school, hit that blog post, sign up, get involved. It will be available for all schools using Google Apps next fall. So they're really in late stages here, which I'm kind of surprised they managed to keep it quiet this long, because it really does seem like a very awesome tool, and it is going to go head-to-head with a few third-party applications. If it doesn't just replace them entirely. I'm kind of concerned. Google has a habit of going big and falling short on the details. So I'm hoping there'll be an ability for teachers to modify due dates and override default settings for individual students. Real-world classroom items that happen, instances that sometimes Google just they're oversights. They fall through the cracks. So until we get a hands-on with this, I'm going to reserve my judgment for sure, but I'm excited. It really seems like a major step forward for the Google Apps for Education concept. Really, truly being able to send a kid home or have a snow day and have the kids stay online and continue working, submit documents just like they were in a classroom.
No, Craig. Listen, I was with you for a second, and then you said that snow days, the kid could still work. Do you realize that right now I have the ability to work from home in a heartbeat, right? And because I have this connectivity with my work, has done a great job building an infrastructure that allows me to use a virtual environment, so I can do all of my work from home, all of it. There's nothing that's stopping me from. If you do this to a kid and you take away their snow days, like telecommuting has taken away my snow days, I'm gonna be pissed off. I think my kids are gonna be pissed off too.
Okay, John. Well, look at it this way. if they could get this up and running, a district might give Fridays off as virtual days. They could cut down overhead for operating the buildings, lights, air conditioning, heating during the winter. Their kids would operate completely online on Fridays. And when you get to college, a lot of your courses are online only. This is a type of education for the future. If you can teach the kids young, maybe middle school through high school, to work online through Google Apps, that's what they're going to be using in college. So it would be real-world skills, and then someone in your position would be familiar and comfortable working remotely.
All right, you got to be sensible on me. Jeez,
sorry, John.
Killing me. All right. Well, I'm with you. I'm with you. All right. Well, that was Classroom from Google Apps for Education, which I think is another great tool. So definitely, if you're in the education market, that's coming, and you definitely we'll have a link in the show notes. You can check that out. The next thing was this guy right here, which I'm going to show you on my screen, which is very interesting. And this is I'm giving a +1 to the the Office team, or the Google App team. And basically, you can see there's a little bubble. You know how they did the bubbles, and basically, and this seems like such a small thing, but it's actually quite large. It's quite powerful. Before you had to edit an image, when you were outside, but now you can read that little blurb there. Edit images right inside of Docs, and this is really cool. And I'm gonna now go over here to the little thing. You can crop images, and you can also add borders. And you can also add, you can change the shape there. You can see how they're the shape and resize by dragging. Really cool stuff, right? I think that was really cool. So, Craig, have you had a chance to try that out yet at all?
I haven't tried it, but last week I actually had to open an image in Slides, edit it there, and then export it to a Word doc to receive the same level of functionality. So this is a very welcome addition.
Exactly, I agree. It's a very welcome addition. I really like it. So, I was excited. It's a small thing. Small thing. So then finally, my last tidbit of news before we head out is this, and this wasn't news. This was just another link from Abraham Williams. The man is awesome with the cool links. Basically, this is this really cool, and I'm going to kind of scroll down until I reach this guy. This is a concept of what the Google, I know this is not news or whatever, it's just, you can see in this middle box, right? This box right here. And I think if I click it, it'll go full screen. Yeah. So this was kind of like their idea of what it would look like if you were to have it. Now look at this. Really give this a good look. I know it's kind of a strange thing to look at, but I'm just saying. Doesn't this really do? I think that the mock-up guy did such a good job. You can see the icon for the microphone, of course, Google. You can see their name in the settings, and at the bottom they have their apps, like their main app set. And as they either speak or type, the auto-populate. Isn't that cool? I mean, it doesn't show you search results immediately, which is something that they like to do now. But I thought that was really cool. Craig, looking at it just now, you can see it on your screen there. What do you think of that? You think that's pretty cool?
I think it's a really neat concept draft, but a usability nightmare. I mean, realistically, the best designs in the world don't work for end users. That's probably going to be one of them. It's confusing. There's no search box. They're going to open up their browser, see a blank white screen with a cursor in the middle.
Well,
what's going on?
Hold on. Check this out real quick. I want to do this. We're going to go to where's tools. This is one of our. Remember, we reviewed this for like a hot second, and this is the Notepad, right? Do you guys remember this at all? So this is kind of where I saw it. I was like, oh, that is so cool, because if you do this, you can just do, see, Notepad live in my browser, right? So you can make notes right in the browser. Yes. So I thought it was really cool that they kind of took that they leaped with that concept, right? Which is basically being able to create. If you look at this, we did this way back a couple episodes ago, like literally like 8 episodes ago, where we talked about all this is a URL that generates a website out of the URL itself, and so that was kind of a neat thing for me to see. When they were doing this with their little Omnibox, right, where it was kind of in the middle there, I just thought that was kind of cool. You're right that you make a good point. Sometimes the best designs in the world are like shooting yourself in the foot. People are like, I can't use that. So I hear you. James, can you see that on your screen, sir? See what kind of like the concept is?
Yeah, I can see that. I think it's kind of cool. Hopefully most people will figure it out when they see the flashing cursor. But as a person who works inbound tech support, the good news about technology is that more and more older people are starting to embrace it. The bad news about technology is that more and more old people are starting to I don't want to finish, that's mean. They're going to look at it and not know what to do. 90% of people are going to see it and say, oh, I should probably type something. But you're going to get that person that looks at it and says, what am I supposed to do? Where's the search box? And who knows, maybe they'll go to Bing or something. But
right. You're right. Now, this is just a mock-up, James. You weren't here in the very beginning. This is a mock-up from a design company, and this is just a quick mock-up that they did to kind of proof of concept. So that's what you're looking at right now. So it's not necessarily what they're going to do, but I agree with you. There is a thing where if your blinking cursor becomes. Now the other Notepad that we had, kind of in that regard, was I think this one. Was this the other one, or is that the same one? That's the same one, isn't it? Wait a minute, hold on. The other one was 2. So this one was a little bit bigger. See, it's even a different font. And see how it turns pink, and maybe better. Right? So this one, I don't know why it turned pink, but this was another one that did the live action, kind of like Notepad thing, so I thought that was kind of cool. But yeah, so I thought that was fun to talk about. It was an interesting concept, so I thought that was kind of cool. But that's kind of it for the news. Real quick, we'll do some plus ones, and then kind of get out of here. I think this has been a great show, and of course would like to thank today. There are a couple of plus ones to give out today. There is Seth Rosenblatt for the initial buzz for the Google Intel event. He posted that on the G+. Dinsan Francis, of course, for the Bing new tab page. He was the first one I saw who commented on that, made a post about it. It was awesome. And, of course, Abraham Williams for the screen grab from the Google Intel Confab and the new unofficial Google search page design that I have up on the screen behind me. And then, so those are the plus ones. And again, thank you guys. Plus ones, of course, are out to the community, people that have given us some great news that we are able to share out there with everyone who watches and listens to the show. Finally, I would like to give a quick update on the HP 14. So James is lucky enough to own one outright, and he uses it. His wife uses it frequently. And I have to tell you, Craig, I know you have the 11, but this thing is really nice. It's big, which I didn't think I would like. I miss my little C720 a little bit, for it's because I know how I like how it's nice. But today we're broadcasting from the HP 14. I think it's doing a great job. Of course, it does have the 4 gigabytes, which I am noticing that 4 gigabytes of RAM does make a difference. There is no tiling on pages. Everything is a little bit more snappy. And the screen, I think, is the biggest takeaway, and also the looks. The rubberized feel and texture of it is really nice, and the screen has been super wonderful. Where it's much bigger, much more crisp. I played Age of Ascent this weekend. Man, that was nice. Oh man, was that nice! And I think it did do a little bit better because of the extra RAM. So there was that as well. So that's kind of my update on the HP 14. And coming up, I'll give a little bit more insight into that. And also, Craig, if yours is doing this, because we mentioned last week, I felt bad about being like, but it's got this crack in the bag, it's got this gap. It's a feature. Listen, my C720 makes a popping noise when I press on one of the corners. What I did notice about the HP 14, if you have an HP 14, is a good possibility if you pinch that seam back together, it just makes you hear a little snap sound and it pops right back in. Is it as tight as it was probably when you bought it? No, there's still that slight gap on the very far edges of that back hinge. But honestly, it does not hurt the functionality at all. I didn't have any problems with that. And that is the only physical problem I've ever seen with the device so far. Power cord is great. 3 USB ports compared to the 2 on the C720. I did the HDMI on the screen behind me, earlier. It was wonderful, super fast. So, I always poo-pooed the color and the size. It is heavier. It's almost like a pound heavier. It's definitely heavy, but it's a wonderful machine. So I definitely recommend it for if you want a big screen that's bright, vibrant, crisp, and just a lot better than the 11-inch models out there. Craig, I don't know about you. The HP 11 has a really nice screen though too, right?
Yes, the HP 11 has an IPS screen. So
right.
It's very, very nice.
Very, very nice. Right, exactly. So now this isn't I don't think that good, but man, this is nice and it's big. So I didn't think I'd like that, but I do. And the turquoise is growing on me, and people at work fawn over it. I'll say it. The ladies love it. That's number one. And then and I was able to show it to. I just want a quick story. In regards to Chromebooks in general, I was able to show it to someone, and they were like, "Oh, this is one of those Chromebooks, right? It just runs Chrome." And you're like, "Yeah, well, it does run Chrome." But then I opened it and was like, "But then again, we do have this." And then quickly I turned it around, and he's looking at Word, and he's like, "Oh, well, then I'm getting one for my son." That's it. That's because he knows that the rest of the other parts of Chrome, where it's so totally secure, you log in. If you lose it, it's everything's there. So he was like, "Man, are you telling me Word's there?" And I was like, "Well, Word's kind of always been there, but now they've got the Chrome Web Store, so now it's an app that's just on the taskbar, on the tray, and you just click it and you're there." And he was super excited for that. So that was like a huge selling point. I know that seems weird. I don't like to say it's a selling point, but it is kind of a selling point. So again, the HP 14, it's definitely a recommend for me. I'm gonna keep it probably another week or two, and kind of bang on a little bit more. It's been going back and forth to work with me, and it's been great. So. Thanks again to Google and HP for that. So Craig, poor James, he got kind of pulled away. Craig, where can people find you during the week, sir?
People can find me on Google+. I use my real name, so it's just plus Craig Tumblison, and you can also find me at chromeup.com.
There you go. And of course, James Welbes, who had to step away for a moment. Where you can find him is tech.itiswhatitis.biz, where they write about a lot of things, a lot of technology, Android, Chrome, iOS devices, boo. They report on a lot of different things, and there's some great articles out there. And James has also done some tutorials out there also on the website, tech.itiswhatitis.biz, so definitely check those out as well. And again, everyone, thanks again for watching Chrome. Not Chrome, Practical Chrome. That's right. Practical Chrome. Where you can find us, of course, is practicalchrome.com, as well as the YouTube channel, Practical Chrome. Definitely check us out. Of course, every episode airs every Tuesday night at 10:10, where we try and give you everything we can on news and interviews and reviews of products, everything Chrome related. A couple days later, we do, of course, release the podcast. The podcast is, of course, free of charge, just like the show. And it comes out a couple days later. It's an MP3, so you just hook up your iTunes. If you do Player FM, Stitcher Radio, any of those, we're right on there. So definitely check that out. And, of course, visit practicalchrome.com. Of course, my name is John Oliphant. You can find me on the interwebs at the Google Pluses at John Oliphant. And of course, if you wish to email me, have any questions or concerns, you can email me at john@practicalchrome, or also you can hit the contact link at the top of the page of Practical Chrome in case you have any questions, concerns, or just want to tell me that I'm looking a little chubby this week, or I need some makeup or something. You let me know. So, Craig, thanks again for joining me on this episode. I think we had a great time with TechSmith again. Thank TechSmith again for them coming out. Kelly and Randy from TechSmith. Snagit was a great app, and I think we had a good time. Did you have a good time, Craig?
I always have a good time, John.
See, that's what I'm saying. And hopefully our viewers, we've still got some people watching, and again, we appreciate you watching. And we will see you next week, where we're going to do even some more exciting stuff. Thanks for watching, everybody.